Hey there, Suzi here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share this special message with you. Now, my co-host Michelle and I love masterminds. Not only do we belong to masterminds, but we also host a mastermind. We started it almost 8 years ago, and it is the premier mastermind for women business owners who want to grow their business with a specific focus on marketing. Now, this group is usually completely booked out, and very occasionally we open the doors and invite a handful of women in. So if you're growing your business, but you're struggling with feeling overwhelmed, or like you constantly have a split focus when it comes to your marketing, this could be exactly what you're looking for. We have an amazing time together, and the women in the group are extraordinary. They're great cheerleaders, supporters, advisors, and colleagues for you. And they're also seeing extraordinary results. We see people cracking the $1 million, $2 million, $3 million mark, launching new e-commerce sites that go from $0 to $10,000 a month in sales. They're doubling their conversion rates, they're growing memberships, they're selling courses, they're growing their personal brands, and they're getting all kinds of media exposure and speaking opportunities and so much more. You can learn more about the mastermind and join the waitlist over at herbusinessmastermind.com. We're going to open the doors soon, so you definitely want to be on the list to get an invitation. So head on over to herbusinessmastermind.com. Hey there, Suzi here, and before we get into today's episode, I want to share a special message with you. My co-host Michelle and I love masterminds, and not only do we belong to them, but Michelle and I also host a marketing mastermind. We started it about 6 years ago, and it is the premier mastermind for women business owners who want to grow their business with a specific focus on marketing. And while this group is usually completely booked out, occasionally we open the doors and invite a handful of new women in. If you're growing your business and you're struggling with feeling overwhelmed or like you're constantly having a split focus when it comes to your marketing, this could be exactly what you're looking for. The results in the mastermind are extraordinary. We're seeing women crack the $1 million mark, launch new e-commerce sites that go from $0 to $10,000 a month in just 30 days, double their conversion rates, get new strategic alliances, grow their personal brands, go from having 3 to 4 people in an online course to 30 to 40 people in just a few months. 10x their previous rates without losing clients. Take a side hustle and turn it into a full-time salary because their marketing is creating so much momentum. Plus, get all kinds of new media exposure and speaking opportunities and so much more. You can learn more about the Marketing Success Mastermind and apply right now over at herbusinessmastermind.com. Now, let's get on with the show. Hi, you're listening to the Content Sells Podcast, a show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 190. I'm Suzi Dafnis, and here with me is my co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Suzi, I'm doing really, really well. As we record this episode, I am about to head off to a tropical island for a family vacation. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Although, of course, there is that usual mad flurry of activities that we need to do to be able to extract ourselves from the day-to-day. But I'm making my way through my list. How are you?
I'm good. I'm recently back from a tropical island and I can highly recommend it. It's quite cool in Sydney at the moment, and it was just so nice to be in high 20s in Celsius and like feet in the sand and warm water and all those gorgeous things. So have the best time.
Thank you.
And I get the flurry of activities. Yeah, it's like hurry to get a bunch of stuff, then go away and relax, and then come back and hurry to get caught up.
It's so worth it though, isn't it? Just taking that time out.
That time to pause is just essential. And because, we haven't been able to travel internationally for so long, and I know how much it fuels you and feeds your soul. Similarly, I think just, whether you go overseas or not doesn't really matter, but just putting that time where you don't have any deadlines, you don't have to wake to an alarm, there's no one clutching at you for anything, really, really important. So, yes, so I am doing great and, have the best time. And by the time this goes to air, you will have been back and I know it will have been fabulous. Now, we have another guest on the show today. So the last episode, we had a fabulous guest, and we have another guest. But this topic is not something we typically look at, but it is so aligned with our philosophies of doing less and obsessing and no content without conversion. And our guest is, and here's where it's really relevant, is a really well-known author and content creator. She's quite prolific, actually. She has an online bootcamp, an online course, which she has been running for 8 years, and she's helped over 8,000 students from around the world. She has a top-ranking podcast and several best-selling books. Her name is Denise Duffield-Thomas, and she's the money mentor for online entrepreneurs who really want to make money and who want to change the world at the same time. And she helps business owners do things like charge what they're worth, like really charge premium prices, and also release the fear of money and all those money mindset blocks. But more than that, and that's more the topic of today's conversation, is to have a more chilled and prosperous life. So actually do less and earn more and really run business on your own terms. And her core message is about living a life of abundance, but without the scrambling and without the burnout. As I mentioned, she's got a great podcast called Chill and Prosper, and that is actually the name of her just now back in stores book. And in that book, she shares invaluable business advice and kind of counterintuitive millionaire mindset lessons that are going to get you on the path to abundance. So I'm very excited about the rewards of listening to this interview that we've done here with Denise. Anything you want to say before we go to the interview, Michelle?
Oh, look, she's wise. She's so listenable, if that's a word. Like I could listen to her talk all day, and really looking forward to hearing what she's got to say.
Great. Let's go to the interview with Denise Duffield-Thomas. Hey, Denise, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's so funny. I've heard your name so many times in this last year. I think we know a lot of people who know each other, which is amazing. So I'm so glad we could connect.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you're known as a money mentor, and your new book is all about money, for sure, but it's also very much about mindset and how to create money easily and without the hustle. Now, we're going to talk about both those things today. But firstly, congratulations on the re-release of the book. We had a chat about it in its first iteration a couple of years ago, but I know that you've made a bunch of updates and new case studies, new title, new cover, all new.
Yes. So one reason was the pandemic. You know, I wrote this book. I started writing it in 2017. It came out in 2019. And I find that nowadays when I read a business book that's written pre the before times, don't you find that there's just sometimes a little nuance kind of missing? And so my publisher asked me to do a new edition, but also we needed to put some more case studies in there, because people would often say to me, I know other people can make their business easy, but I'm not allowed to, because my industry's special, because I'm not allowed to charge more than other people, or whatever it is. Everyone had their own excuses. So it was really great to be able to, you know, have a readership of the first edition of it, and then they could tell me what they did and how they did it in their different industries.
I love it. Now, the book in its first iteration in 2019 was called Chillpreneur. It's now called Chill and Prosper. Tell us what it means to you to chill and prosper.
Oh, well, when I first wrote it and I had the name Chillpreneur, I think people were thinking, again, it's like going to Bali, having that laptop lifestyle. And it's not what it was about. It was about creating ease for yourself with your personality in mind. And even the fact that we did change it is one of those things of making it easy, because I don't know if you know this, but Entrepreneur Magazine own the word entrepreneur. You cannot
I did know that, actually.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? You cannot use it in any way, shape or form. And so when we decided to do a new edition, I was like, well, let's make this really easy, because I don't want to have to fight a big multinational company if I want to use the name Chillpreneur anywhere else. So it gave us a lot of different options to do that. And then I could call my podcast Chill and Prosper as well. So that's a good example of there's always an easier way. And you know how sometimes we're trying to fight against either our natural inclination, or we get a lot of no signals, or just things don't quite feel right. There's always an easier way to do something. And there's always that path of least resistance. And that's what being a chillpreneur really is all about.
One of the things that is a mantra inside of our organisation, which I think fits perfectly with what you just said, is we have a mantra of do less and obsess. Do less and obsess. And we're always encouraging, and that actually comes from a professor who wrote a book called, it's going to escape my head right now, but when he studied exemplars in every industry, he found that they weren't trying to do all the things, they were doing less, and they were obsessing. And his name is Morten Hansen.
And so I'm going to write that down.
Go ahead.
So
Morten Hansen. Yep. Yeah. And in an interview that he did with actually an amazing author called Daniel Pink, he talked about this idea of doing less and obsessing. So this is something we encourage women inside of her business to do. And that includes things like you don't have to have a course and a membership and coaching and an e-commerce store and have all the different ways of bringing in income. Instead, find out what your ideal client, what makes most sense for them, and also what makes most sense for your business and the lifestyle that you want to create, which is very much in line with what you're doing with Chillpreneur. Now, to that point, you just celebrated 10 years of Money Bootcamp. With over 8,000 graduates. Yes, that's very exciting. And it shows such tenacity and grit. And also, because I know that you don't do 10,000 things, this is an example of doing less and obsessing. So firstly, congratulations. And secondarily, are you ever tempted to try and do all the things in your business, to have all the different revenue streams and ascension models and all those things that are out there in the world?
Of course. I'm a creative entrepreneur like anyone else. So I love that you said the do less and obsess, because in my business, we say all roads lead to Money Bootcamp.
Okay.
And I bought my husband, Mark, a light box in his office, and it says, sell more boot camps.
I love it.
Because when he came into the company, he was like, there are so many opportunities here. And he said, oh, I think people would love to have a mastermind with you. Let's do a mastermind. And then I think people would love this, this, and this. And then let's do this. And then, of course, I'm creative as well. So I'll go, oh, my God, let's do personalized mugs. Let's do merchandise. Let's do events. Of course, I do all the time. But I keep us coming back to that. Sell more boot camps, as in help more people. It sounds transactional, but it's just a shortcut for us to say, we already have a vehicle to help people. Right. Let's just help more of them, and let's not overcomplicate it. And then the all roads lead to bootcamp thing, that helps me to not tinker and procrastinate in the back end of my business, because that can be just as bad as well. Maybe people don't create new things, but they're going, oh, I need to add an extra bonus, or the branding's not good enough. And yes, those things are important, but I could spend so much time tinkering in the back end and never telling anybody about it. So all roads lead to bootcamp for me gives me so much freedom to create anything in marketing that I like. And so I let my creative squirrel brain come up with ideas in the front end. And so then no matter what I create, all roads lead to bootcamp eventually. And that has saved me so many times, because I'm just as squirrely as anyone else.
But it allows you to play, as you said, and be creative, but with a very, very clear focus. So what makes an opportunity a yes or a definite no? Is it that it doesn't lead to Money Bootcamp?
Yes, that is our first thing, is does this make sense? Does this lead to Money Bootcamp? So at the moment, we don't have an ascension model. We used to have some smaller cost products, and we're going to experiment to bring it in. It's just a couple of years ago, I needed to refresh the courses. I needed to re-record them. And so I just went, why don't we experiment for a year of having nothing for sale except Money Bootcamp? And so we say to people, I've got so many resources for you. It's free or Money Bootcamp. And just to not give them any other option, basically. It was a great experiment. I mean, it's worked really well for a couple of years, but I can feel the itch to create a few other little bits and pieces The other thing you said about lifestyle, about being really clear on what you can handle in your lifestyle. So I have 3 kids. And so you think my oldest is 8, and then I've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So in that 10 years of Money Bootcamp, there were times where I was like, I can just do the bare minimum this year.
Right.
And so that worked really well for me. Now I've got a little bit more bandwidth, but I have to make sure still that if I'm creating extra things, all roads lead to bootcamp. So that's what helps. I'm also terrible at estimating length of projects. So I have to be so careful, because otherwise I will say yes to things because I'm delusional about how long things take. I just pile them all up and then just go, I'm sure they'll all get done. And they do, but that's why I only re-record Money Bootcamp every 2 years. If I did it every year or allow myself to get a bit obsessed about making it perfect, I would never tell anyone about it because I'd be too busy fixing it and tinkering it.
One of the things that I've heard you say on your podcast a couple of times, and I know is in the book, is that you actually design how you deliver your products and services so that they are more chill and that you enjoy yourself. So what sort of things have you tinkered to make it more enjoyable for yourself as far as how you deliver your programs, how accessible you are, those sorts of things?
Oh, for sure. I've made so many mistakes around this. Oh, my God. So the first thing I want to say is that sometimes we think there are rules that we have to follow. And when Mark came into the business, he was like, wow, you're making $1 million, $1.5 million. You seem to be pretty, chill doing 1 launch a year. How about we do 2 launches a year? And then it was
driving the things, right?
Mark, bless him. And then he said, well, why don't we do 3 launches a year? So one year we ended up doing 4 launches a year, which you think, okay, a launch is, call it a month-long event, really, even if it's a couple of weeks. But because we were doing 4 a year, there's pre-launch, then there's launch, and then there's delivery. And I was in all of those all at the same time. And it was like being in all trimesters of pregnancy at the same time. I was going through the morning sickness. I was growing the babies. I was delivering the babies. I was breastfeeding the babies, all simultaneously. And it really I just went, oh my God. And not only that, in the delivery period, 6 weeks of calls, I do 2 different time zones. So I was doing 12 calls per launch, and there was always a launch coming. So I was just constantly
relentless.
It was relentless. And I went like cuckoo. So then I said, look, we're going to do 1 launch a year, and then we're going to do evergreen so people can join whenever they like. And I'm going to do 1 call a month, but I still do the 2 different time zones, because I was just copying other people's business models. I was going, you have to do a 6-week live delivery period. That's just what you have to do. Instead, I realized it was an arbitrary thing, because money mindset and any mindset work, it is, God, how long is a piece of string? And trying to fit it into this 6-week program was just completely arbitrary. So now what I do is people join anytime. They get the framework of the course. And then on the monthly calls, we talk about something that we can all discuss, whether someone's joined that day or someone's been there for 10 years. And an example of that might be we talk about pocket money, and we say, let's talk about how pocket money, did you have it? Did you not have it? All these things. How has that collectively impacted our money mindset? And so anyone can join that call in the month. But it meant that there was longevity for me, because I was looking at my schedule going, I can't do this for years. How am I supposed to survive this, pace of work? But now it's like, it's the last Thursday and the last Friday of the month. The month goes quick anyway. And then we have something really juicy to talk about together. Even last year, I realized that Thursday night call, which used to be at 8 p.m., I would be buzzed and I couldn't sleep and I'd feel really resentful. And I was like, can I just move it to 7 p.m. instead?
I love it.
And it was just one of those moments I went, yeah, I can choose. And yes, not all your customers always like when you change things like that. But I was thinking of ditching that Thursday night call because it didn't work for me. So I'd rather tweak it than get rid of it. And I think that's the lesson for all of our businesses is what can we tweak? What can we change? What can we pivot? What can we renegotiate to make it better for us? Because otherwise there might not be a business because we'll burn ourselves out.
And in the beginning, I think when we're trying something new, like say, for example, the launch process that you use, we might want to emulate it exactly. Oh, they did this many videos and this is all the inclusions and these are the bonuses until we get our stride, and then we can pull it apart. And that's what you've done. Like, you know, it works for you. But sometimes you're right. We can just get locked into, it'll only work if I do it this way, even though it feels so against the grain for me. So I really love that you said that, because we can really create our businesses to really serve our life. Now, we might need to go and mentor and learn the process so that we know why it works the way it works for others as we start to unpack it for ourselves. Now, you talked about the idea of chill and prosper in the business context, but you've actually set up some systems and strategies that you've implemented in other parts of your life that allow your whole life to be a little more chill. Can you give us a couple of examples?
Yes. So when I used to read business books, I realized that a lot of the time they never acknowledge the work of being a mother or a woman or, you know, other commitments that people might have in their life, like caring responsibilities or having a chronic illness or anything like that. It's just kind of assumed. And let's face it, because a lot of business books are written by men, and it's not in general as big a concern for them, because it happens like magic sometimes, because sometimes they have a partner or a wife, or they're not as shamed by society at outsourcing those things. Right. So I realized I actually love doing most things in my business. And if I had to cut it down to the bone, I could do everything in my business. But the things that stress me out the most were all the things at home.
Right.
And just the way my brain works, if I do laundry, I start to obsess over the perfect way to do laundry. I start to think, what's the most optimal way of drying things? I start to research different ways of hanging clothes or storing clothes. I start to redesign the laundry. And that's just how my brain works. And so a lot of those things just created a lot of mental clutter for me. So I outsourced them. So I started years ago with just someone coming 2 hours a fortnight to help clean the bathrooms, because I spent Saturdays saying, I cleaned the bathroom last week, you clean it this week, because I felt like, why should I have to do it just because I'm, you know, the woman? Especially since Mark and I have been together since we were very young. And so we always kind of earned the same. We had the same educational background, but it was still kind of considered that I would somehow iron his shirts or be the one to cook.
Right.
And so we just upgraded as we made more money. And nowadays I outsource most home things. I don't really cook. I don't do any cleaning. I don't do any laundry, because I know that it personally, for me, it saps my energy, and I'd rather spend that creating assets, and then I can spend time with my kids without having to do that. And that makes me very privileged for sure. But I started before I was ready, and I upgraded as I went. And I find a lot of people, the resistance to it is a lot of society shaming of saying you should be doing this yourself. Or we're kind of told, again, in business, outsource this, this, and this. And it's like, don't outsource just because someone else told you to do it based on their preferences. Look at what's draining you in your life at the moment. And if it's home stuff more than business stuff, that's where you put any spare money. Even, you know, for so many people, getting childcare would be a way better use of funds than building a new website for your business.
And like you said, you started with 2 hours, and then you've been able to increase that. And so I think that's key, because most of us as small business owners, if we're running a business that has found its stride, should be able to find a couple of hours worth of dollars that someone will gladly have to be able to come and support you around your home if that's the place you need it. And I grew up, Denise, in a Greek household, and my mum was a stay-at-home mum. And so she was kind of expected to do all the household things. That's kind of how it was. But then for me, as her daughter, she was like, well, what's wrong with your hands? Why would you get someone to clean your hands? What's wrong? Like, I was like, nothing is wrong, but that is not the best place for me. But I had to really sort of dig deep and go, I'm not just going to buy into that psyche lucky, and I think so many of us have. So I love that. There's a part in the book where you talk about having a keyless life, and there's also a podcast episode, and we will give you the details for both the book and the podcast later. But I think it's just essential reading for women, because sometimes we can find ourselves trapped. Let me give you a quick story. One of our members, she's a high-paid lawyer. She's got a firm in regional Victoria, has lots of staff, multi-seven-figure business, and she was the one vacuuming the office on a Thursday night. And in one of our group meetings, she was like, I'm so busy. Well, we're like, why are you vacuuming your office? She's like, well, what do you mean? It was like, just get someone else to do that. It was like the idea had never come to her head that that was something that she could give up.
Wow. I've heard so many stories like that. I really have. Or people saying, they'll say to me, but I love cooking, Denise. And I say, I'm not telling you to outsource everything if you don't want to. It's just that we shouldn't even have a conversation about should we feel guilty or not, because men are just not having these conversations. They're just not. There's no guilt. There's no judging each other. And anyone who has said to me anything about it, I say, oh, here's my husband's email address. Like, just tell him. I don't care. Because I think it was harder for our mums. It was harder for our grandmothers, because there wasn't a way for them to leverage their unique skills and talents.
Right.
Like your grandmother could have had an amazing YouTube channel, of how to cook. My grandmother could make anything. Like she could, make clothes. She could have had a great Etsy store selling patterns, but they didn't have that. And so, of course, so much of their value was wrapped up in that. And we have to honor that, but doesn't mean then we have to do that, because there are other things that we can do to honor them as well. And, I financially support my mum now because my business is successful. And if I'd grown up in her era, I wouldn't have been able to have these opportunities either.
Well, we could talk forever about that. But I think it's so wonderful to open up, just to open up that thinking. And of course, a lot of what you're known for, a lot of what you do is mindset. And I want to circle back to that, but I want to talk about this. This is a direct quote from your book. To make money, you have to ask. Now, that seems obvious, but tell us why you tell us that. Tell us about that idea.
Yeah. So the two-step marketing process that I share in there, which has helped me make, over $25 million. It's so simple, but yet we complicate it. Step number one is share what you know.
Right.
And we're all really good at this. I think we're good at sharing tips and advice and, freebies and letting people pick our brain. We're so good at the value part. And I see people do amazing newsletters and amazing social media content, but then there's never any follow-up ask, because we suddenly think that that's selling. We go from being giving and generous to, now I'm taking from people. And it can be as simple as just saying, if you liked this, here's the next step. If you liked this, but you need my help, here's how I can help you. And we have to do that second step. We have to ask, but it's not even we're asking, we're just telling people what that next step is. And it can be as simple as, if you send out astrology updates, which I see so many people do, they're right, here's your Virgo forecast for the day. If you want your own personalized reading, click here. Because people will receive all your free stuff, but they forget.
Right.
Something else comes up, they don't know. And I actually got a text message. This is perfect. I sent an inquiry 2 years ago to this person about massage, and she wasn't doing any clients because of COVID. But obviously she kept my phone. She sent a message. I have to read it to you. It basically said something like, here's your message from the universe to book a shiatsu thing. Click here. And I went, I will.
That's great.
Only because she asked me.
Yeah.
And then imagine if I booked it straight away. I've never met this person. I've never, someone referred me to her 2 years ago, but she asked and she told me what to do. And then imagine then if she had just had a really simple follow-up a week later to say, hey, just a reminder, if you're interested, click here. And I thought, sometimes we have to remember that people are busy, people forget, people just need it to be easy for them to like click here and do it. If she had said, call me for appointments, no, I wouldn't have done it.
Yes. So something akin to that is, we see women work on creating a fabulous ebook or some free resource, and you go to their website, you fill out the form and it says, thanks, it's on its way, and there's no ask. And so one of the things that Michelle and I encourage listeners on the Content Sells podcast to do is that is the opportunity to now say, great, and if you enjoyed that, then this is the next thing. And so it's such a missed opportunity. And like you said, she didn't have to do much. She just had to connect with you and ask and put the link right there. Not say, hey, and I'm going to get back. Yeah, call me, or look, if you're interested, let me know and I'll send you a link. Right. And even then you might have lost her. Right.
On when, if she'd sent back, well, when are you available? Well, when are you available? It went to one of those online calendars.
Yeah. And you went.
And I just put it in straight away. And what would have even been better if she said, do you want to pay for it in advance? Because I love paying for things in advance. Okay. Then I can just float out and pretend it was free.
And not have to do the credit card dance at the end.
It would have been easy. But I'll tell you some stats on that because I once did it. I had a just like a free audio about like 7 money blocks. And I put it up, but I was going, it's just not good enough. I really should take it down and it was a recording of a live one. So, there was some bits in it that I didn't like, and I just kept on going, and it just niggled on me all the time, but it was live. And so I finally said, I'm going to take that down. And I got my web guy just to give me the stats on it. So he said 23,000 people had signed up for that free audio, 23,000. And 1% of them had bought Money Bootcamp.
Oh.
Because at the end of the audio, I was like, if you liked this, I have a Money Bootcamp. I'll just put the link below. There was no countdown timer. There was no follow-up sequence going, hey, I've got a Money Bootcamp. There was no testimonials. I literally just said, I've got this thing if you want it. And 1% of people was enough just to go, actually, I'm ready to buy this. And so it worked out at like $200,000 that I'd made just from asking.
Fantastic. And, and like you said, it wasn't any hard pitch. It was like, by the way, if you enjoyed this is what I have. That is like a multiple six-figure return on that one question.
On very, the one good asset, exactly. And I still didn't think it was perfect. And I still kept thinking, I'm going to re-record it. But then what was really interesting, I had a manifesting course for a little while. And again, it was like free manifesting, sequence by my manifesting course. And then I had a follow-up to say, hey, do you want to pay for it over 2 installments instead? And it was really split 50-50 between the people who bought it straight away and people who bought on the follow-up email. But what was fascinating about that, I still got like 1% conversion to people who bought that. On the thank you page, I said, look, my Money Bootcampers get this for free. So if you want to upgrade to Money Bootcamp, I'll take $200 straight off. But if you want to just join it later on, you'll just pay the full price, no harm, no foul. So 1% of people bought manifesting course, 20% of people took the upgrade.
That is fantastic.
With, again, no countdown timers. I literally was just like, if you want it, I have it. And that's why I say to people, if you're just starting out, add the bells and whistles later. If I was writing a sales page now, I would just literally say, here's the thing and here's a payment link. It would be that long, the sales page. I'd make it live, and then I would add things as you went along. Some people don't need a lot of convincing. I know if I want something, I don't really need all the other bits and pieces. I've gone, yeah, that will be helpful for me, or no, it won't, and I'll just go buy it. And which is another reason why I made Money Bootcamp evergreen, buy whenever you like, because I know I'm like that. If I read someone's book and they go, oh, I've got a course or I've got a program, I'll go buy it now.
Yeah, right. And again, we see it all the time. You read a book and it's like, I want to know more, and there's no call to action. All right, we've got a couple more juicy things that I definitely want to cover. The first is there's a section in the book called Use Money Language in Your Marketing. And you say that you don't have to be a financial advisor or an accountant or bookkeeper to help people make more money, but that almost regardless of what you do, there's a way that you can tweak your messaging in order to let people know that what you do will ultimately save them money, which is such a great hook. Could you give us a couple of examples of non-money industry businesses that might be able to use this idea?
Absolutely. So money language is just using, the words like investment and value and priceless and stuff like that, because sometimes we think, well, it's easy if you're helping people make money. That's easy. That's fine. But there's so many ways where we're helping people save time, or we're helping them do something that is going to lead to them making money. So one thing, you could be a web designer. I help you create an amazing website to make it easy for you to make more money, for your customers to give you money. I am a stylist. I help entrepreneurs come up with an amazing, look and feel so that they can attract more clients and make more money. So they're the ones that are kind of adjacent to maybe your customers are entrepreneurs or business people. But then what if you're a wedding planner? What if you're a family photographer? That's when you can still use the kind of the money language of priceless. Like this is priceless memories. You can never capture that time ever again. And it's really creating that value in the words that you use. But also saving people time is money. Working with people who are high achieving individuals, for them, sometimes their currency isn't how much money I can save. It's how much time I can save, how much energy and bandwidth I can save, so then I can go on and do my other thing. So you don't have to make more money than your clients. You don't have to be better at them at a certain thing, but where can you find that gap? And a really good example is something that happened today. So I've got 4 podcast interviews today. I have a yoga person who comes to my house in between the ones, right? So I literally got off a call. I have the yoga downstairs in my office. We finish at like 10 minutes to, so I can, it's there. Having someone come to my house to do yoga is, $120, right? I can go to a yoga class for $20, $30. I'm not someone who's looking to save money in that. I need someone who will come to me at my convenience in my house, because I value that accountability. I value the fact that I can't get out of it, because otherwise, honestly, if I had an hour and a half and there was a yoga class next door, I would find a million excuses not to go. But she knocks on my door and I can't not do it.
So you can't pretend you're not home. I love it. And it's a great example. It's like sometimes we don't realize what our clients really value. Because I'm similar to you. Whether it's yoga or whether it's someone will come and prep meals for me, whatever, there's things that we value because of what it gives us that are often way beyond what your hourly rate is or what you think people will pay for. And uncovering, there's great strategies in the book actually for pricing strategies. So you really want to dig into those when you get your copy of the book. I love that about money language, because we can all use it. We all have something that to someone is a priceless experience, whether it's, relieving the symptoms of menopause or having your child learn easier, whatever it is. Now, you've got incredible practical strategies inside the book, but we can have all the strategies in the world, but if mentally we're having a hard time with making money, we have beliefs or habits or stories that keep popping into our head, then it can be hard for us to realize the abundance that's possible for us. And that's one of the things that you teach very deeply. What are some of the most common money blocks that you see, especially with women business owners who are our typical listeners here on the show?
Well, the first one is our very ingrained story that you can only make money by working hard. Yeah. And we know this. We know, of course, you have to put effort into your business. And that I say in the book, it's effortless. It's not effort none. There's no effort, none strategy.
That's
ever.
a social post if I ever heard one. That's great.
Yes, definitely. But we all have our own very personal relationship with this concept of working hard. And I'm glad that you talked about being Greek, because one of the things that we have to untangle is, what's our family heritage? What's our family's relationship with work? And, how did people make money in my family? What's our family story? If we had a shield, what would be on our shield? Is it, we work harder than everyone else? Someone told me their family unofficial motto was, we could live on a lentil. Oh, wow. We can live on a lentil. And I just went, doesn't that just immediately conjure up, yes, we're so resilient and frugal and hardworking that we don't need anything spare. We could live on a lentil. And when you start to unpack those official and unofficial stories about money, you realize then how that's impacting you in your life and business. Because of course our ancestors, of course they had to work with their hands and work hard and work hours for dollars. There was no leverage that a normal person could do. And I think it breaks our brains a little bit to think, hang on, I can create something once and then thousands of people could listen to it, but I only did the work once. I could get paid for that again and again. It kind of breaks the space-time continuum a little bit for us. I want to hear your story here, but I mean, I grew up on the Central Coast. I grew up in government housing. I grew up with a single mom. And so I've got that I'm humble and down to earth. I'll muck in. I'm not too good to, do my own stuff. And then I was a dancer growing up. The show must go on no matter what. And so then I had that feeling of I have to be always on. I never have it, I can never have a bad day because the show must go on. And so that was kind of my story. I hear a lot from from people whose parents were immigrants, that of course they had to work their butts off to succeed. And so then it's almost a guilty feeling of, what, I can just talk to people and make money? What? That doesn't feel right. So I want to hear your perspective. So my parents immigrated in the 60s, and so they didn't have the language. So the only work that they could find was manual work that, in their own country, they might have had different professions. And my mum was a stay-at-home mum, as I mentioned earlier, and she would, babysit kids and do some things to sort of help the family, and so she wouldn't go crazy. But she became a single mum by the time I think I was 13, she had 3 of us, and my parents separated. My dad was a builder, and so he knew how to bring in a lot of money, but he also knew how to spend a lot of money. And so there was always this tug of war about how much was being spent versus how much was being left for the kids. And while in some ways we never lacked for anything, money was a cause of a lot of infighting inside of our family. So that, I'm sure, screwed us up in a number of ways. But I've always had no one's going to give it to you, you've got to earn it. And, and I got my first job, I secured my first job when I was 14 and a half and still too young to work. But I had lined it up for the day that I was old enough so that I could go and earn my own money. And so I've personally always had the work hard thing. So when I started my own business, and it started to make some money, and I set my sights on $1 million. And some of our listeners have heard this. It felt like the most unreal goal. And when we lost our first $50,000 in the first 6 months of business, we didn't tell anybody. We were so embarrassed. The only person who knew was our accountant and me and Pete, my partner, PJ. When we made the first $1 million, we didn't tell anybody because we didn't want anyone to know, because, again, whatever crap, excuse my language, was going on around having people know. And it took a long time for me to be able to say I've now built 5 7-figure businesses across different countries and industries. But I can still sometimes feel like, oh, you don't talk about money that way. Yes. And anyway, my story is long as it relates to money, and I haven't really shared it much. So thank you for asking. Well, I think what's really fascinating about my work is I love when people tell me their stories because, you know, as Landmark Forum says, we're meaning-making machines as humans. And so, so many of our experiences have created these little internal rules for ourselves. And I'm glad that you said your dad was a builder, because recently a couple friend of ours was supposed to he has a mastermind for builders.
Oh, wow.
And he got COVID and he had to put it online, and I volunteered to do a session to do money mindset for builders. And it was so great because I realized, you know, there's so many cultural things in industries too. So these guys had this cultural Australian mateship thing combined with their own family backgrounds and cultures. And then this builder's mentality of, I'm not too good to get on the tools.
Yeah.
You know, and these guys some of them were in their 30s, some of them 40s, 50s, 60s. And they said, I always want to be the first to arrive and the last to leave. And I want to prove to, you know, the newest apprentice that I can work just as hard. And these guys, they're having to be like almost do this caricature of like the Aussie bloke of I'm not too good and, you know, I'm working class. And they had very successful multi-million-dollar building companies, but they were like, and their wives, you know, who often were their bookkeepers, were just going, but you hurt your back last year because you were trying to keep up with your 20-year-old apprentice. And it's fascinating. And some of them were second-generation builders. So they were like, but my dad could keep on doing it until he was 80 and he was on the tools. Why shouldn't I? And it was so great to be able to try and dismantle some of that and say, well, let's look at our stories and let's look at why we think we have to do that. But also on the other side of it, what would happen if you weren't on the tools? What would people say about you? What would people think about you? And we've all got our own individual things around that. And one thing that I love asking recently, I'm going to ask you, if that's okay. Sorry to flip.
Oh, sure. Who's doing this interview anyway? I love it. I love a co-interview situation. I love it.
Yes. Well, I've been asking people because it's very telling to say, tell me about your school shoes growing up.
Oh, okay. So I grew up in Sydney, Australia. So barter scouts are what people wore. Did you? I don't know if you wore them on the Central Coast. No. They were like black lace-up shoes, but there was a particular brand that most people wore. But let me give you an example. So our uniform, you know, we all had uniforms. You could either buy the uniform and it looked like it was meant to, or you could buy the fabric and make your own uniform. And my mother would buy the fabric because that was more economical. So my uniform, like, she would sometimes have the design going that way, different collar. It was the right fabric, but it was like, you know, because it was more economical. So to answer about my shoes, they were black lace-up shoes, but they weren't always the right brand. But then I did convince them to pay the extra money and get me the right brand that everyone was wearing. Tell me what that all means.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I think when you are aware of money, that's when you start to, with something like school shoes. So some people might say, I had one pair that had to last the whole year.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, or they'll say, or the contrast starts to come up where you say, that's what the cool kids had and this is what I had. You start to see, like, sometimes people don't talk about money in their family at all. So some of them, I asked a bunch of guys and they were like, oh, I don't know, I just had the same shoes that everyone else had. And so it's like, oh, okay, so your parents you never heard your parents talking about the cost of school shoes. And that doesn't mean they were wealthy, by the way, because sometimes what I've noticed now that I've talked to so many people, sometimes people were wealthy, but they didn't realize it because their parents talked about money in such a scarce way, they actually thought they were minutes away from being bankrupt. Sometimes people were middle class and they're or even lower class, and their parents just kept their anxieties to themselves and made sure that their kids had everything. Sometimes the kids were keenly aware of every cent, and there was that guilt there of, oh my God, I've had a growth spurt, I need new shoes. As an adult, for me, it's so fascinating. This is why it's such a great question, because you just start to learn, okay, well, tell me about that, you know, like how does that show up for you now? For example, the fact that you sometimes were different to other people? Does it make you really hyper aware of that or not? Was that a driver for you to make your own money so then you could buy the exact thing that you wanted? It's things like that are really telling for people. And that's why I think inner child work is great, but inner teen work is fascinating, because that's when we start to notice the contrast and we start to become aware of money as a tool, and a tool for social currency, which is obviously, very emotional and emotive memories for us. We start to decide, am I cool? Am I a burden? Am I allowed to ask? Am I allowed to have desires? Am I allowed to choose? And then I see grown adults and you say to them, what do you want? And they go, I don't know. What am I allowed to have?
Right. And I see that with business women. Like, am I allowed to have a 6-figure business? Can I even contemplate high 6-figure, 7-figure? Okay. But sometimes our support is really to get them to that first 6 figures.
Yes.
It is okay that there is no limit, and that it's not just about moving from this side hobby contributing to the family to actually stepping into their own and actually having more money than they feel is okay for them right now. Just really expanding that. It's an interesting topic, and one that it impacts our every single day. And I just thank you for your commitment to working in this area for as long as you have, and coming at it from all the different aspects, and imbuing yourself and your own story into it so much as well. So I thank you for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you. Well,
sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No. I should have just received that compliment instead of trying to cut you off. But what I was going to say is I still find it endlessly fascinating. And I think that's why I've been able to do a course for so long, is because I'm still finding nuances as a student that I find fascinating. Even, if we go back to the shoe example, or anything from your childhood, is, if you had to learn to use it all up and make do, then you see businesswomen and they don't have a proper laptop. They won't let themselves get a brand new phone, even though they can get it on, probably the same cost per month as an old one, because I have to make do. I have to make do. I have to suffer. I have to get the juice out of things. I'm not allowed to have something new. I'm not allowed to be frivolous, or I have to make money before I'm allowed to spend that. Or, my husband says my business has to make money, then we'll get more childcare. And it's just because we're used to I have to make do. And that's how I grew up. And I remember when I went and I needed a special bra for an event. And it was like a beige bra, but it was one of those ones that really have like a really plunging neckline, because the dress was plunging. And there was a moment I was like, but I already have a beige bra. You're not allowed to have more than one. Like, who do I think I'm that have more than one? But you're allowed to have one black bra, one beige bra. That's it. And same when I still feel this now, even as like a multimillionaire. I love shopping in thrift stores all the time, but I'll be like, am I allowed to have 2 pairs of jeans that are roughly the same color denim? It's like, honestly, it really disturbs me sometimes. I'm just like, I'm not allowed. I have to make do. And it's just that expansion sometimes of going, I'm allowed to want what I want, and I'm allowed to make things easier in my life. That takes so much undoing. It really does.
Well, thank you so much for the book. I'm very excited for its re-release, and look forward to hearing from our listeners, their thoughts. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with, Denise?
Yes. It's just a really simple question of just saying, why not me? Why not me? No one's going to come and tap you on the shoulder and go, you're ready, come with us. You have to just ask yourself this every single day. Like, why not me? I've got something to say. Why not me? I've got something to offer. And just keep on going. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I had so much fun in that conversation, Michelle.
Oh, Suzi, yeah, when I got the chance to listen to it, I was like, oh, just, gosh, I could have just been there and chatted away with you two gorgeous humans for hours on that topic. There was so much wisdom shared. Great interview.
One of the things that, because she's so funny, and she made the comment about her beige bra. And so that night I got home and I did an inventory. Well, I opened my drawer and I went, I am in the land of abundance when it comes to bras. There is no lack in the area of bras in my household. So I sent her off a note and we had a good giggle about that.
That's but it's true, right? We do deprive ourselves of so many things, and it's just unconscious. As soon as it comes to light, which is what she's so good at doing, we go, oh, of course I can have a second bra.
Yeah, absolutely. So many good takeaways. I have jotted down a few, but I'd love to know what yours are, Michelle.
Well, look, I think this is what she always talks about, and I don't think we can hear it enough, is this idea there's always an easier way. She used that phrase during the interview, and it is part of her sort of chillpreneur, chill and prosper kind of, main messaging. It's really who she is. But, we heard it in that interview expressed in so many different ways. There's one course, like you were saying earlier, the Money Bootcamp, 8,000 graduates. She's doubled down on that. She's not doing 10,000 things. She's really finding the easier way. All roads lead to Money Bootcamp. If I'm having struggles, I don't go and invent something new. I just sell more boot camps, And I also loved, though, that this idea that there's always an easier way doesn't mean you're always taking like the shortcut or the less, quality way. It doesn't mean she's resting on her laurels. She's an absolute goer. But it's this idea of being effortless. Not effort none, she's not thinking, gosh, you can just sit at home and mention 3 words and make $1 million. She knows there's effort involved, but it's always looking for that easier way, because incrementally, what I was thinking about after the interview was if that's your sort of standard mindset, you make it a little bit easier this time, and then next time you make it a little bit easier and a little bit easier, or you say no to those other things that want to crunch in and make things harder. And it doesn't take too long before things are actually pretty easy. And, the reverse can happen. We can say yes to things and we can complicate things and we create a real prison for ourselves. So I love that. There's always an easier way.
I think that's a great mantra. I might put that on a Post-it note, because sometimes I know I do go the difficult way or go the way that I've always done it when, if we stopped and thought, oh, is this necessary? Could I be doing this easier? I think that's a great one. And she even kind of said it. It's like it wasn't always that way. She's evolved to this way of thinking because, we talked about, the money mindset that most women have, and she works with a lot of women, and she said it was working hard. And so she's, while she's all about effortless, not effort none, she still works hard in her business. It's just that she's very clear about doing the legwork when you need to do it, setting up the funnels, educating yourself, systemizing, automating, because that's going to make it effortless later. That's going to free up your time and give you that chill and prosper later. So no one's saying, it's all going to be cruisy all the time, but that, she's very focused that all roads lead to boot camp. She did the hard work, initially, and she continues, to participate in that community and support that community, but it's so much easier because she did that harder work. Sometimes it's harder to confront, sometimes it's harder technically, but she did all that in the early days so that she can continue to prosper from this thing she created 8 years ago, now with just a few, tweaks of the channels.
Yeah, and lots of people have said to her over the years, I was talking to her about this a couple of months ago, and she mentioned on the interview that, like, her husband came into the business and he was like, well, we could sell this and we could sell that and we could sell this. And she was like, no, we're just going to do this. And it made me think about the podcast episode that we've got, episode 160, why being opportunistic is costing you opportunities. And I think if anyone's listening and this message from Denise has really resonated with you, you might want to go and check out that episode, because opportunities are great.
Yes.
But like Denise so beautifully modeled for us, you need to be very wary of opportunities. You only want to open very few doors because it's real easy to open a door, much harder than once you step through and you've got to operate these 50 different ideas you've started the ball rolling on.
Very, very good. I also loved, and there's a whole section in her book. And now I just want to say the book, in case anyone didn't catch it, the book was released a couple of years ago as called Chillpreneur. But this is an updated, expanded edition with a new title, but also lots of new case studies and examples. So even if you have Chillpreneur, you definitely want to grab a copy of the book, and you want to grab it because she's got a bunch of great bonuses. So I'll give you the details for that so that you can claim your bonuses a little later on. But there's a section, while it's about, money and money mindset, there's a lot in there about marketing and how she markets the business. And one of the things she said was about using money language in your marketing. And that's really about getting clear on the value you provide and thinking about, well, how does my business help people make or save money, even indirectly? So you might not think so, but lots of different businesses can be tweaked to become more explicitly linked to money by saying things like, the price, that the value is priceless. Or you might think about, what would it cost a customer if they don't take up my services or buy my products? And that applies whether you are a nutritionist and what would their bad health cost them? Or what would not figuring out your relationship cost you and your family if they didn't take up your marital guidance, services? So really, really great part of the book about how to inject that money language into your marketing, no matter what your business is. And we only kind of touched on that, but it's just such a great part of the book. I want you to check it out.
Yeah, money language, more money language. And a little bit along that line, I also really liked how she kind of just keeps the main thing. And these points are all obviously interrelated because she was saying how, I only record the boot camp, re-record it, and update it every other year. Because if I let myself, and I thought it was a really interesting choice of words, if I let myself record the boot camp every year, I wouldn't tell anyone about it because I'd be too busy tinkering with it. And I think that is the trap that many business owners fall into. They're tinkering with the thing that they sell, changing that module, fixing that graphic up. And that isn't keeping the main thing. You need to be focused on selling more boot camps in Denise's case. Or if you are a consultant, having more meetings so you can put more proposals together to sell more consulting. And so, we talk about this idea of filling the freaking hotel. You don't see big hotel makers building these giant hotels and then just continuing to titivate and change the carpet. And no, they market the heck out of all the rooms and they fill them every night, every year. And that's how you want to feel about your business. And I think Denise is such a great example because she is making money. She is growing. She is profitable. She is living her dream life in her dream house by her dream beach. Because of these, this is where the pedal hits the metal.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think that she's a wonderful role model of is putting guardrails and boundaries into your business. And now that's not to say that she's rigid. It's just that she's very clear about how she gives to her community and how she doesn't give to her community, what she gives away for free and what she doesn't give away for free. And this message is just very evident in her podcast and in her book. And I think it's a great lesson for all of us because we have leakage and then we get resentful. But if you can start to set it up so that you have a good exchange for and return on investment for your time and energy with your products and services, then you'll never feel resentful that that client is asking too many questions, or here you are on a Sunday having to deal with that customer service issue, and looking at what those boundaries are. And that's why I say the book is about money and money mindset, but it's about other sorts of mindsets as well. And so, yeah, I just think she's a really good role model for drawing the line as it relates to how she interacts in her world.
Yeah, this money mindset's in everything we do, and it's so prevalent in business. And so, I just think this is such a relevant topic for business owners. And there were so many things that jumped out at me. I had pages of notes, but the last thing I wanted to mention was how she sort of was looking at what everyone else was doing. People are doing multiple launches a year and kind of fell into doing 4 launches a year and practically kind of drove herself into distraction. And realize you don't need to copy other people's business models. You do what's good for you. And she pulled it back to one launch and some evergreen because that's what works for her and her life. And that's what gives you the longevity. That's what gives you the sustainability. And I just love how clean she is around this. Like, she's obviously someone who's done such a lot of the work, the mindset work. And when you get that mindset work done, as you know, Suzi, I know you've, worked on different parts of your mindset for, years. I know when I have a mindset breakthrough, so many parts of my life get reinvigorated. They get uninhibited. I feel more freedom. I feel less stress. And so, for anybody that's looking at your business right now and you might have some money issues, or you can sort of sense you might have some money hang-ups that are constricting your business, I really recommend the book.
We highly recommend that you grab a copy of the book for lots more of Denise. And the other thing is she has put together a wonderful list, a ton of different bonuses that you can get with the book. But in order to do that, you need to head to a specific address, and I'm going to give you now. We're also going to put it in our show notes. So let me give you that. So if you go to denisedt.com/prosper. And I'll just say that again. It's www.denisedt, all one word, .com/prosper. Like I said, we'll put it in our show notes. And the book is called Chill and Prosper, The New Way to Grow Your Business, Make Millions and Change the World. And it really is about mindset and business advice on building an online business without hustle or burnout, and really practical money mindset strategies that allow you to earn more without the hustle, with actually working less. So I want to thank Denise. We had a fun time on the episode, and I just look forward to sharing her message with more and more women. It's so, so important. Now, we love sharing tips like the ones that Denise shared on today's episode with as many business women as possible. So we would love it so much if you would leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. Now, we have over 100 5-star reviews. So thank you if you're one of the people who've left us a review or clicked on the 5 stars. But if you haven't yet, would you do us a favour and just take a moment? It makes such a difference to us, and we appreciate it so much. And we love hearing from you, and sometimes those reviews, we read them, we screenshot them. Michelle and I share them with each other. We share them with my team. We give you a shout out on the show. And the person I want to give a shout out to today is Kylie Maidment, who's one of our members. She has a business called Switched On Kids Cognition. And she said this. She was talking about episode 186, which is called How to Get More Sales from Your Social Media Followers. And she said, thanks, I found this really helpful. I often wonder why I'm bothering on social media. I have over 500 followers and only about 200 or so even see what I post. I learned really fast with Facebook ads to pick an ad that was working well and to use it entirely to generate leads for email. She said the suggestion from the podcast to regularly tempt Facebook followers to my email list using interesting lead magnets is a great one. Kylie, it is a great one. It's so essential. And if you haven't listened to that episode, you definitely want to have a listen to it. If you're using social media and you're not getting traction, they're not turning into clients, there are some really great tips on how to move people from social media onto your email list or onto somewhere where you can retarget them with your message. So Kylie, thank you for the note, and thank you for being one of our awesome Her Business members. Now, we've mentioned a few different resources, including the book, including the bonuses that Denise has put together for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to put all those resources plus all the links to follow Denise in all the places she is, and she's a great social media maven, so you definitely want to check out what she's doing. We're going to put all that over at herbusiness.com/chill and prosper. So that's the word chill, A-N-D, prosper. So herbusiness.com/chill and prosper. And Denise, thank you again. Michelle, what have we got coming up in the next episode?
I'm just looking at the number of the next episode. It's episode 191. We are hurtling towards our 200th.
We are. There will be a celebration very soon.
Oh, party. Now, this episode is called Staying in Your Lane, How to Avoid Distractions and Accelerate Your Marketing Results. And it's very much going to be a companion piece to what Denise was talking about today and what you may have heard Suzi and I talk about on the show before. And really this idea of staying in your lane is a concept that we want to share with you because we know it's made a massive difference to the women in our mastermind group. And it can be a real vote of confidence for you too. And it can help take down all of those bright, shiny objects, all of the noise, all of the stress, all the things that have you thinking, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, and helps you just stay really focused on your lane, on what you really want to be doing and how you want to be doing it. So that's in the next episode.
That is coming up 2 weeks from the day that this episode drops. But if you're not yet subscribed, you want to go ahead and click that subscribe button because that way you'll definitely get that episode in your app as soon as it's released, and it's going to be a goodie. Michelle, anything you want to say before we go today?
Another big thank you to Denise. You are brilliant, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the new book. I am looking forward to reading it.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sells podcast. Bye for now.